Hi friends! There's a new digital release from Sweet November Stamps inspired by Friday the 13th out today, and I'm so excited to introduce to you the Goth Dolls. They are each named after a member of the design team as well as our amazing guest designer for this release, because just like they say in the craft, we are the weirdos, mister. So we have Creepy Caitlin, Appalling Amy, Maniacal Melissa, Venomous Vanessa, and Toxic T with her furry friend Scary Squishy. These are live in the Sweet November store now, and with the help of Sweet November, I'm giving away a $20 gift card to their site. For a chance to win, make sure you're subscribed to my channel, give this video a thumbs up, and leave a comment before Sunday, August 15th at 5 p.m. Eastern, when we'll be picking a random winner. And now let's jump into this video where I'll be showing you how I created this scene card featuring Creepy Caitlin because she's obviously the best. To start out, I'm stamping my sentiment from Paperie Ink's My Boo stamp set onto my card panel. I had already layered the Creepy Caitlin stamp over the window and moon images from the Witchwee Beatrix Halloween Pack and Adobe Spark Post and printed my scene out onto a no-line coloring cardstock from My Favorite Things. This is definitely my go-to paper lately. I love it. I decided to start coloring the scene with the moon, going in with neutral gray Copic sketch markers to map out the craters. I'm kind of making little circles, ovals, and C shapes to create that crater feel without having to do too much detail work. I blended out the grays with the Y0000 and colorless blender to soften the edges and to try to give the moon a yellow glow. I also used the Y00 to create a halo around the moon in the sky, which I blended out with the B0000. These colors don't look like they pack much of a punch, but they really do add a lot of contrast to your final piece. I definitely used a lot of markers for this scene, so I'll be sure to list what shades were used for each section in the description box below, as well as any other supplies that I used today. I started going in with my deeper blue shades at the bottom of the window, creating feathered lines as I went higher so I could layer and transition the colors without having to stress about a perfectly smooth blend. Skies are actually one of my biggest insecurities when it comes to coloring, and I've had to play around with a lot of different techniques so I don't drive myself crazy or overwork the piece and end up with way too much ink on the paper. As I got closer to the moon, I started to curve my lines to match up with the curve of the halo we had already colored. I went back and forth with the medium and light shades a couple of times to make sure the saturation level was where I wanted it to be. Next, it was time to color in my stone wall and window, and I decided to stick with neutral instead of warm grays to keep a colder feel to the scene. I don't own any of the actual cool gray markers yet, but they are on my list and probably would work just as well, if not better, to get the look I was trying to achieve here. When I first discovered card making and Copic coloring, I was really intimidated, and I thought I needed all 350 something Copic markers or my cards would look like garbage and there was no point even trying. And then one day I caught a Facebook Live on the Adventures in Coloring with Amy page, and she was creating this gorgeous fall outdoor scene. I think I had a total of 3 of the same marker colors as her, but for once I literally did not care. I love that scene so much that I used the colors I did have and I made it work. And that was the day I fell in love with Copic scene coloring. I think in card making, but also in life, it's important to remember that everyone is at a different point in their journey. Amy's been Copic coloring every day for years and years, so of course she has every marker color. That doesn't mean I needed them all too right away. Just because we don't have every tool we see or want in the beginning doesn't mean we can't make great work. And on that note, I'm going to take a step off of this soapbox and get back to what's happening on this card. So I went around the edge of the window with the N6 to start creating a shadow of where the moonlight wouldn't touch the wall. And I went around and around with lighter and lighter markers the further away from the window. I ended up going over the whole wall twice, and I also used a ruler to create the floor line, but you could always eyeball it if that's how you roll. My whole life, Halloween has always been my favorite holiday. My family actually owns a haunted attraction, and I started learning how to paint stone walls around the age of 8. Because of this, my natural tendency is to want to draw in every single brick to create a full stone wall. But I really wanted the focus of this scene to be on the Goth Doll herself, and so I wanted her to be the most detailed. I thought that leaving the wall a flat stone instead of individual bricks would really help to pull attention towards the doll and not distract from her. You can see when I'm going in with this second layer, I'm being way more generous with my darker and medium shades. The first time I was just kind of mapping out my plan, but the second time I'm really adding in the drama and the contrast, creating that difference between the light and the dark. I also went in with my medium shade and created some stipples to give more of a rocky rough texture, as well as going in with the darkest N6 shade again to create some cracks in the wall for more of a decrepit feel. I also felt like the cracks helped to break up that solid gray mass. And the trick with these is that you want to use a very, very light touch so that you get those really nice tapered ends. Next, it was time to tackle the bricks around the window, and I decided to use mostly lighter shades of the neutral grays because I really wanted to keep the contrast up with that dark shadow we had already established. Honestly, I could probably color in bricks like these all day, and my dad probably wishes I was. I also went around the inner edge of those bricks with the same Y quadruple zero that I used for the moon to help give a soft glow like the moonlight is really hitting those stones. Next, it was time to tackle the floor, so I pulled out my trusty ruler and some E70 markers. I decided to go with the E70s because they're more of a purple brown versus an orangey brown, and I wanted my whole background to stay cool toned so that when I did use brighter oranges for my Goth doll, she would pop off the page. I started off by going in with long horizontal lines and then went in with some vertical ones to break them up into planks of wood. Then I went in with a very rough wood grain general idea and a few knots here and there just for texture, but I really didn't want these to be overly detailed again because all of the focus should be on the Goth doll when we're done. You can also see that for both the wall and the floor, I've kind of skipped over where my sentiment is with the darkest color and only gone in really lightly with the medium and light markers. And now the true fun really begins. Now I'm going to go in and start coloring up Creepy Caitlin herself. The first time I saw this image, I knew that I wanted to make some of her skin green and some of her skin Caucasian to really play up that Frankenstein feel that I got from the stitching on her skin and her dress. While I'm recording this voiceover, I literally just remembered that one time when I was an assistant manager at a restaurant in college, I had to work on Halloween night even though I had requested off, and so in rebellion, I actually did my makeup almost exactly like this for my shift that night. And I didn't get in trouble, but I probably should have. But also I'm wondering if I subliminally made her look actually like me. Anyway, back to the coloring. So I use my go-to Caucasian skin tone combination here, which is E04, E11, E00, and E000. And I also decided to go in and give her some chocolatey brown eyes, which are like mine. Early on in this process, I had decided that I was going to use a triadic Halloween color scheme, which is orange, green, and purple. Those three colors are opposite from each other in a triangle on the color wheel, and so they create a beautiful contrast, but have also become so popular for Halloween colors that I knew it would read as Halloween the second you saw the picture. So I knew I wanted to give her some bright orange hair, and so I went in with my E09 to start mapping out where the roots of her hair would be and individual strands, using squiggly lines to create more of a curly effect. I then went in with my YR18 and YR14 markers to blend it out and to get more of a highlight to her curls. You can see I'll be working in 3 different sections. I decided to work in one section at a time while my ink was still wet so I'd have more control over the blend I was getting, and also because it's just way too much hair to tackle at one time. I also decided to leave out the front section and money pieces of her hair to do in a different color to give it almost more of a Bride of Frankenstein effect. You'll see here in a second I turned my card panel upside down so that I can start working on the top section with an easier angle for me to work at. I wanted to make sure that I was really taking my time and not getting any of that orange marker in my beautiful bright white moon. So this helped give me more control over where I was coloring and the angle I could hold my hand at. With this hair, she's giving me some serious goth Merida vibes, right? So I decided to make those front sections of her hair black, but we never just want to use a flat black to make black hair or it will read as not hair. So I went in with my darkest gray marker and started piecing in little sections, making sure I left plenty of white space in between and kind of focusing the darker color on where those curls bend at the end. Then I went in with lighter markers as I went, but making sure to really leave that white highlight as much as possible so she gets that really shiny hair effect. It definitely takes some practice and time to get those flick motions down with a light enough pressure that you really get that hair texture, but it is 100% worth it. I also went in with a little bit of the B0000 to give her black a tiny bit of a purple pop. Of course, she needed some vampy black eyebrows, and because I added that purple to her hair, I decided to make the little bat ornament in her hair purple as well, going in with B09 and B06. I added pupils with my dark gray marker and then decided to start working on her dress. I knew I wanted to make her dress black and purple, so I went in with my darkest gray again, and I really went through to start mapping out where the darkest parts of her dress would be, and also making sure that I wasn't doing dark next to dark on those folds so that they would contrast off of each other and give dimension. I left the tiniest little sliver of white space on the edge of where I was creating those rounded shadows so that when I went in with the darkest shadow under those pleats, they would really pop against each other. Just like with the stone wall, this dress is going to be getting 2 layers of coloring. When I first started out, I would see other people doing more than 1 layer and I would think to myself, is that really necessary? But it really does make a difference for me, not only in saturation, but in my ability to blend out my colors. The more ink that's soaked into the paper, the more easily the 2 markers will blend together to create a smooth transition. I brought in the same purple markers that I had been using before, as well as 1 extra lighter shade just to give it a little pop. And I really had fun planning out her outfit, like, can I be a fashion designer now? I also colored in her pentagram necklace gold, and then I got started on the boots, which might be my favorite part of this entire thing. The boots really needed to be a shiny Doc Marten kind of feel, and I wanted to add a pop of green like her skin tone on the toe where it's stitched on. The final step was to go in with a white gel pen to add in some details. So I did dot highlights on her eyes, I added some polka dots on her dress, and then I went in and added some highlights around her stitching, as well as to the cracks around the wall and anywhere that needed a little highlight. I really wanted to share with you 2 of the other goth dolls that I was able to color up, Venomous Vanessa and Maniacal Melissa. I think they are so adorable. I feel so lucky to be on the design team for Sweet November stamps, and they have so many amazing images, both digital and clear stamps, available on their site. If you would like to enter into a giveaway for a $20 gift card to Sweet November, please remember to subscribe, hit the thumbs up button, and leave me a comment below before Sunday, August 15th at 5 p.m. Eastern. I had so much fun coloring this card, and I really hope you enjoyed the process as well. I hope you had a great Friday the 13th, and I really appreciate you being here. I'll be putting out new videos every Friday moving forward, so please keep an eye out, and if you have any suggestions for anything you'd like to see or need more information on, please let me know.